Hi guys, we're about to start Chapter 8 of Race the Wild Rainforest Relay by Kristen Earhart. Starting on page 103. Life in the Forest. Today, hundreds of thousands of people live in the Amazon rainforest. There were over 400 tribes, and the people speak at least 180 different languages. Some of these people follow traditional customs that are hundreds of years old. They make their own tools, hunt and gather in the forest, and carve canoes from the giant kapok tree. But the influence of the outside world has changed life in many villages. There's a little bit of a picture on this page. Archaeologists have found evidence that there were once many well-organized civilizations in the Amazon that were far larger than those of today. There were up to 7 million people making their life in the rainforest about 500 years ago. However, when explorers arrived from overseas in the 1500s, they brought disease with them. Many of these diseases, like smallpox, were foreign to the Amazonian people, and great numbers of them died. The people who live in the rainforest today are still resourceful. They know which plants to eat, which to use as medicine, and which to avoid because they are poisonous, or not tasty. For hundreds of years, they have sustained their lives and their livelihood of the forest. Chapter 8, Afraid Friendship. I'm going to make a prediction. I'm going to keep it to myself. You make a prediction too. What do you think is going to happen in this chapter? Ready? Let's find out. This has to be it, Sage yelled again. The river we are on now is the Amazon, and that must be the river Negro. Ooh, I'm not sure how to say that word. Somebody's going to have to help me sound that out. What do you think? Right there. Negro. What do you think? She explained. See how that river is darker than the Amazon? For a while, the waters don't mix. They flow separately, side by side. Russell's eyebrows tightened. How did Sage know something like that? Mary must have wondered the same thing because she asked. It's all my sister, Sage confessed. She did a whole science fair project on erosion in American rivers. Don't ask. She's a whiz. Whenever it rains, which is a lot, the rainwater carries soil and nutrients into the water, Javier said. That's where the color comes from. It's the same with the Amazon River, but it's greener. As if on cue, it started to drizzle. It had been so muggy, the rain felt good. So, Dev said, looking at their guide. Is this it? I can't tell you. Maybe you should reread the clue. Dev did just that, cringing again at the bad rhymes. Then everyone started looking for the flags that greet. Sage and Dev searched on one side. Mary and Russell searched on the other. Russell soon noticed several pennant-shaped flags with the wildlife logo. The flags marked a path leading up from the muddy beach. The larger, faster motorboat was already there. At least there's only one boat, Dev pointed out. We're probably in second place. They hadn't seen any other team since the start of the race, so they hadn't had any idea what place they were in. It's not over yet, Sage said, splashing her rubber boot into the river before the boat had reached the shore. Russell sprang out next, landing in the muck. Dev and Mary followed. Good luck, Javier called out. The 4 kids turned and waved before changing up the stone-lined path. When they reached the crest of the hill, they found that the ground dropped again immediately. A deep gully cut through the land with a ribbon of water, the color of chocolate milk at the very bottom. How are we supposed to cross this? Mary wondered out loud. There's another pennant over there, Deb pointed downstream, and the group jogged along the narrow ridge, forcing their way through the lush growth. Sage crunched down as soon as she reached the point across from the flag. No way, she hissed. The rest of the team gathered around. Russell couldn't believe it either. The green team cut the rope bridge so no one else could cross? Dev said as he looked at the far side of the gully. That hardly seemed sportsmanlike. Russell could see the frayed stubs of thick, grayed rope dangling down the far side of the ditch. That's the only explanation I can think of, Sage answered, lifting up the other end of the bridge. The wooden slacks cracked against the dirt wall when she let go. Russell still didn't believe it. Would his friend seriously pull something like that? This was all his fault. If he hadn't been foolish enough to let them track him, they'd never have been in the lead in the first place. Now it was up to him to find another way to get his team across. It's steep, but we could slide down, wade through the water, and climb up the other side, he suggested. That's not an option, Mary said, with uncommon certainty. There are piranhas down there. You know what piranhas are? Think about what piranhas are. If you're not sure, we may need to pause the video and talk about piranhas before we move on. My pages are sticking together. I know they aren't usually that dangerous to humans, but that's a shallow stream where there are not a lot of food options. That's a desperate scenario for piranhas, and us. Russell gulped and glanced around. His gaze traveled up the trees and across the other side. The vines, he said. We can swing across. Seriously? Sage said. You've seen too many adventure movies. You got a better idea? Russell had already looked up and down the gully. It didn't seem to have a beginning or an end. We don't want to get off the path with the flags. Come on, he said, tugging on one of the thick vines that twisted itself around a high branch. Not that one, Dev insisted, his gaze assessing the vine. The ditch and the far bank. It's set too far back. With that angle, it'll drop us in the middle of the stream. We need one closer to the edge. He took several paces, his eyes focused high in the branches. One like this? Dev flung the vine across the expanse. The vine's tail dragged briefly on the other side. Russell, Sage, and Mary stared as the vine traveled back. It's the best we'll get, Dev said, his voice confident. I'll go first. Russell held the lower part of the vines as Dev found his grip. Ready? Mary shielded her eyes. Set, Dev said, and Russell grabbed Dev at the hips. Russell took a step back and then ran forward and gave him a firm shove. When he let go, dun dun dun, what do you think is going to happen? You think he's going to stay swinging, or do you think he's going to fall? I'm really hoping for the best. I'm nervous. So far, it looks pretty good. When he let go, Russell swore a part of him kept going across the open gully, still on the vine with Dev. As if he had timed it perfectly, Dev released at the exact moment the vine reached the height of its swing. He landed in a heap, but he didn't look hurt. Eeeeee! Squealed Sage. Dev, are you okay? She was jumping up and down for joy. It's kind of fun, Dev declared, pushing himself off the ground. Mary had just managed to open her eyes. He made it, she said. He made it, Sage said. You're going next. All right, that's the end of that chapter.